The hotel lobby was quiet in the way only expensive places ever were. Soft lighting, polished marble floors, the low hum of wealth moving through the air. Steven Seagal stepped inside without drawing attention to himself. He wasn't wearing a suit. No entourage. No flashy watch. Just a simple black jacket, dark jeans, and the calm, grounded presence of a man who didn't feel the need to prove anything. He approached the front desk, where two receptionists were chatting softly. One of them looked up, then looked him over slowly, from his shoes to his face. Her smile faded. "Good evening," Steven said politely. "I need a room for tonight." The receptionist typed for a moment, barely glancing at the screen. "We're fully booked," she replied flatly. Steven nodded. "Could you please check again?" She sighed, visibly annoyed, and clicked a few keys without really trying. "Like I said, sir. No rooms." A businessman nearby shifted uncomfortably. Something about the exchange felt off. Steven remained calm. "That's strange," he said evenly. "I was told availability wouldn't be an issue." The second receptionist leaned over, whispering something with a smirk. The first one laughed under her breath. "Sir," she said louder now, "this is a private luxury hotel. Reservations are required." Steven met her eyes, unbothered. "I understand. Please call the manager." Her expression hardened. Moments later, the manager arrived, tall, sharp suit, confidence bordering on arrogance. He didn't offer a greeting. He didn't offer help. He offered judgment. "Is there a problem here?" the manager asked, already siding with his staff. "This gentleman thinks he can just walk in and get a room," the receptionist said. The manager looked Steven up and down. Slowly, deliberately. "We're fully booked," he said. "And frankly, sir, this hotel caters to a certain clientele." Steven raised an eyebrow. "And what kind is that?" The manager smiled thinly. "People who belong here." The words hung in the air. A couple in the lobby stopped talking. Someone near the elevator pulled out their phone. Steven took a breath, not in anger, but in patience. "Please," he said calmly. "Just check again." The manager crossed his arms. "No, I won't." He gestured toward security. "Escort him out." Steven didn't move. Instead, he said something so quiet, so controlled, that no one expected it. "Are you absolutely sure? This is how you want to handle this?" The manager scoffed. Security stepped closer. What none of them realized, what no one in that lobby understood, was that the man they were humiliating was standing inside his own hotel. Security didn't touch Steven yet, but they stood close enough to make the message clear. The manager straightened his suit and lowered his voice, the way people do when they believe they hold power. "Sir," he said, "you're disturbing our guests. I'm going to ask you to leave now." Steven glanced around the lobby. Guests had stopped pretending not to watch. A couple near the elevators whispered to each other. The businessman from earlier shook his head slowly. Steven remained where he was. "I'm not disturbing anyone," he said calmly. "I'm asking for a room." The manager let out a short, humorless laugh. "You don't get to ask here. This isn't a roadside motel." One of the receptionists smirked. "Some people just don't know their place," she muttered, loud enough to be heard. That was when the atmosphere shifted. A young woman standing near the lounge chairs pulled out her phone. Another guest did the same. Steven noticed, but said nothing. "Sir," the manager continued, his tone rising, "do you even understand how this hotel works? Rooms here cost more than most people make in a month." Steven nodded slowly. "I understand exactly how it works." The manager leaned in, voice sharp. "Then you should understand why we can't let just anyone walk in off the street." Steven's jaw tightened, but his voice stayed steady. "You're making assumptions," he said. "And they're wrong." The manager's face reddened. "Now you're accusing my staff." "I'm stating a fact," Steven replied. Security took another step closer. "Last warning," the manager said. "Show a valid reservation or leave." Steven reached into his jacket. The manager's eyes lit up with suspicion. Hey, don't start something. Steven slowly pulled out his phone. Not a credit card. Not ID. Just his phone. He looked at the manager. Before this goes any further, I want you to think carefully. The manager waved him off. Enough. You're wasting everyone's time. He turned to security. Remove him. That's when Steven raised his voice. Not in anger, but just enough for the entire lobby to hear. I haven't raised my voice. I haven't disrespected anyone. And I haven't broken any rules. Silence spread. And yet, Steven continued, I'm being treated like I don't belong, based on how I look. The manager scoffed. This isn't about looks. Steven met his eyes. Then why hasn't anyone actually checked? The receptionist froze. The manager hesitated, just for a second. People noticed. A man near the entrance spoke up. Did you even check the system properly? The manager snapped back. This doesn't concern you. But now the crowd was involved. Phones were fully raised. Whispers grew louder. Steven turned slightly, addressing no one in particular. I've traveled all over the world, he said. I've been welcomed in places far more exclusive than this. And I've learned something simple. He paused. The moment you judge someone by appearance, you lose control of the situation. The manager clenched his jaw. I said enough. Security reached for Steven's arm. Steven didn't resist. He didn't flinch. He simply said one sentence, quiet, precise, and unsettling. Touching me right now would be a very bad decision. Security hesitated. The manager's confidence cracked, just slightly. The lobby held its breath. Have you ever seen someone judged or humiliated like this in public? Comment yes or no, and tell us where you're watching from. Steven lowered his phone and looked at the manager one last time. This is still your chance, he said calmly, to fix this. The manager chose arrogance instead. And that decision was about to cost him everything. The lobby felt smaller now. Not because people had moved closer, but because tension had filled every open space. Conversations had stopped. Even the soft background music felt out of place, like it didn't belong in what was unfolding. Security still hadn't touched Steven. The manager noticed, and it irritated him. What's the problem? He snapped at them. Do your job. One of the guards shifted uncomfortably. Sir, people are recording. The manager glanced around. Dozens of phones were raised now, screens glowing like quiet witnesses. His jaw tightened. This man is trespassing, he said louder, as if volume could turn a lie into truth. Remove him. Steven finally spoke again, but not to the manager. He looked at the guard nearest to him. You don't want to do this, Steven said calmly. And deep down you know why. The guard hesitated. That hesitation enraged the manager. Are you questioning my authority? He barked. He doesn't belong here. Steven turned his head slowly and faced the manager. You keep saying that, he said. But you haven't explained why. The manager scoffed. Look at you. No reservation. No proof. No status. Steven nodded slightly. So that's it. Yes, the manager said sharply. That's it. Steven exhaled, not in defeat, but in control. Then let me ask you something, he said. If I looked different, would this conversation even be happening? The question landed hard. A woman near the front desk whispered, He has a point. The manager's face flushed. This is not a debate. But you made it one, Steven replied. The moment you stopped treating me like a guest, and started treating me like a problem. The manager stepped closer, invading Steven's space. You're testing my patience, he said. And I'm done being polite. That's when Steven's phone buzzed. He glanced down at the screen. A message. Short. Simple. On my way. Steven locked the phone and slipped it back into his jacket. The manager noticed. Calling backup. Steven smiled faintly. Something like that. The manager laughed loudly, trying to reclaim control. You think calling someone is going to change anything? Steven didn't answer. Instead, he looked around the lobby, at the guests, the staff, the guards. "I want everyone to understand something," he said, voice steady but clear. "I didn't come here looking for trouble. Trouble came looking for me." Security shifted again. One of them lowered his hand. The manager saw it, and panicked. "Enough!" he shouted. "Get him out now." Steven raised his hand slightly, not to stop them, but to signal patience. "1 minute," he said. "Just one." The manager shook his head. "You've had enough chances." Steven met his eyes. "No," he said quietly. "You have." The crowd murmured. Someone near the elevators said, "Why is he so calm?" Another replied, "Because he knows something." The manager's confidence was unraveling, but his pride refused to let him back down. "You don't scare me," he said. "I don't care who you think you are." Steven nodded. "That's clear." A child tugged on his mother's sleeve. "Mom, is he famous?" The mother squinted at Steven's face. "I don't know, but he looks familiar." The manager snapped his fingers. "Security!" The guards looked at each other. No one moved. Steven's calm had done something strange. It had exposed everyone else's aggression. The louder the manager became, the smaller he looked. Steven took a step back, not away from them, but to give space. "I don't need to raise my voice," he said. "I don't need to threaten anyone." He paused. "The truth doesn't require force." That sentence hit harder than shouting ever could. The manager swallowed. Before he could respond, the elevator doors at the far end of the lobby opened. A man stepped out, well-dressed, nervous, eyes scanning the room urgently. When his gaze landed on Steven, he froze. Then he straightened his posture immediately. The manager turned, confused. "Who are you?" The man ignored him completely. He walked straight toward Steven. The lobby went silent. Steven didn't smile. He didn't move. He simply waited. And in that moment, everyone watching realized something important. This situation had never been out of Steven's control. They just didn't know it yet. The man who stepped out of the elevator didn't rush. That alone was strange. In a lobby thick with tension, where voices had been raised and authority had been abused, he moved with deliberate calm. His suit was perfectly pressed, his expression tight, not with anger but with concern. He stopped a few steps behind Steven. The manager turned toward him, irritated. "This area is restricted right now. Hotel business only." The man didn't respond. His eyes were fixed on Steven. Then something subtle, but unmistakable, changed in his face. Recognition. Not the casual kind. Not curiosity. The kind that makes your posture straighten without thinking. "Sir," the man said carefully, almost respectfully. The manager frowned. "Who are you? And why are you interrupting?" Still, the man ignored him. "Steven," he continued, lowering his voice just enough to feel personal, "I'm sorry. I was told there was a situation." The lobby reacted instantly. Steven. That name rippled through the room like a spark hitting dry ground. A woman near the concierge desk leaned toward her husband. "Did he just call him Steven?" Another guest whispered, "Wait. Steven who?" Phones tilted upward. Zoomed in. Steven gave a slight nod. "There is a situation," he said evenly. "But it's being handled." The manager laughed. Too loudly, too quickly. "Oh, this is ridiculous," he said. "You people know each other. That doesn't change anything. This man still doesn't have a reservation." The man from the elevator finally looked at the manager. And his expression was not friendly. "Sir," he said slowly, "I think you should stop talking." The manager stiffened. "Excuse me." Before the man could answer, a young guest near the seating area suddenly gasped. "Oh my God," she whispered. "That's Steven Seagal." Her voice wasn't loud, but in the silence, it carried. Heads snapped toward Steven. Someone pulled up a photo online. Then another. Side-by-side comparisons. The same eyes. The same calm intensity. Whispers spread fast now. "That is him. No way. Why didn't I notice before?" The receptionist's face drained of color. The manager shook his head, forcing a laugh. You really expect me to believe that? Steven didn't correct him. He didn't confirm it. He simply stood there, letting the truth surface on its own. The man from the elevator took a step forward. Sir, he said again, firmer now, you are embarrassing yourself. The manager snapped. Who do you think you are? The man exhaled slowly. I'm someone who knows you're about to lose your job if you don't de-escalate. That hit hard. The manager looked around for support, but found none. Security had stepped back completely. Staff avoided eye contact. Guests were fully invested now. Steven finally spoke. I didn't say who I was, he said calmly. I didn't ask for special treatment. I asked for basic respect. He paused, letting the words sink in. You denied me that. The manager opened his mouth, then closed it. For the first time, doubt appeared in his eyes. A guest spoke up. If that really is Steven Seagal, shouldn't you at least check? Another added, even if he wasn't, this is wrong. The receptionist whispered, Sir, maybe we should call corporate. The manager spun on her. Don't tell me how to do my job. Steven tilted his head slightly. That's the problem, he said. You forgot what your job actually is. Silence. Steven turned to the guests. This place was built to welcome people, he said. Not judge them. Not measure them by clothes or assumptions. The man from the elevator nodded subtly. The manager swallowed. His confidence was gone now, replaced by fear masked as pride. You're bluffing, he said weakly. This is all some kind of stunt. Steven met his gaze. If it were, he said, you'd already be safe. The elevator dinged again. Another figure stepped out, older, authoritative, eyes sharp. The man from the elevator stiffened immediately. Sir, he said, stepping aside. The older man scanned the room. Then he saw Steven. His face went pale. He walked forward quickly. Steven, he said quietly, this should never have happened. The lobby froze. No whispers now. No doubt. The truth had arrived. The manager stood motionless. And for the first time since this began, he understood something terrifying. This wasn't about a room anymore. This was about accountability. And it was coming for him. The older man stood beside Steven now, his presence changing the energy of the entire lobby. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Let's all take a breath, he said calmly. This situation has gone far enough. The manager finally found his voice again, thin, defensive. Sir, I was just doing my job. This man showed up without a reservation and refused to leave. The older man turned to him slowly. Is that really what happened? He asked. The manager hesitated. Steven spoke before the silence could be filled with excuses. I came in quietly, he said. I asked for a room. I was denied without a real check. I was judged. And when I asked for respect, I was threatened with removal. His voice was calm, but every word landed with precision. I never raised my voice, Steven continued. I never demanded anything. I didn't even tell anyone who I was. He looked directly at the manager. You made this personal. The manager's jaw tightened. I treat everyone the same. Steven nodded. No. You treat everyone you think is beneath you the same. A ripple of murmurs spread through the lobby. The older man glanced around, taking in the phones, the guests, the staff frozen in place. This hotel prides itself on service, he said. Yet what I'm seeing right now is fear, arrogance, and a complete lack of judgment. The manager shifted his weight. Sir, with respect. No, the older man cut in. You lost the right to say that word tonight. Silence. Steven stepped forward, not aggressively, but deliberately. I've spent my life in rooms far more dangerous than this one, he said. I've seen what happens when people confuse authority with power. He paused. Authority is given. Power is earned. The manager swallowed hard. Steven turned slightly, addressing the crowd now. Every single person in this room deserves dignity, he said. Not because of who they are, but because they're human. A woman near the elevators nodded slowly. Someone whispered, "That's right." Steven looked back at the manager. "You assumed I didn't belong," he said. "And instead of checking, you escalated. Instead of listening, you humiliated." The manager's voice cracked. "I didn't know who you were." Steven's eyes didn't soften. "That's the point." The words hit harder than any insult. The older man folded his hands behind his back. "We're going to review the footage," he said calmly. "All of it." The manager's face drained of color. Steven raised his hand slightly, not to stop him, but to add one more thing. "This isn't about punishment," he said. "It's about understanding." He took a breath. "If someone has to prove their worth to be treated with respect," he continued, "then this system is broken." The lobby was completely silent now. Even the phones felt heavy in people's hands. The manager finally looked down. "I was wrong," he muttered. Steven watched him for a moment. Then he said something unexpected. "This could have ended differently," Steven said. "At any moment, you could have chosen humility." The manager looked up, eyes full of panic. "Please." Steven shook his head gently. "I'm not your enemy." He turned to the older man. "I don't want special treatment," he said. "I want standards." The older man nodded. "You'll have them." Steven stepped back, giving space again. "But understand this," Steven added, his voice calm but unyielding. "Tonight didn't expose who I am." He looked at the manager one last time. "It exposed who you are." The manager opened his mouth, then closed it. There was nothing left to say. Security stood still. Staff looked shaken. Guests felt like witnesses to something bigger than a hotel dispute. Steven picked up his bag and placed it gently at his side. "I came here to rest," he said. "Not to teach a lesson." He paused. "But if a lesson had to be taught, then let it be this." He looked around the lobby. "Respect is not optional. And it does not depend on appearances." The older man nodded once, firmly. "This conversation isn't over," he said to the manager. "But it will continue somewhere else." The manager knew what that meant. Steven turned toward the desk again, not with anger, not with triumph, but with calm finality. "Now," he said quietly, "let's do this the right way." The lobby exhaled as one. Everyone watching understood one thing clearly now. The real power in the room had never been loud. It had never been aggressive. It had been calm. And it had been watching all along. The older man took a step forward, positioning himself squarely between Steven and the front desk. "Everyone," he said calmly, "I need your attention for a moment." The lobby was already silent, but now it felt official. "My name is Daniel Hart," he continued. "I oversee operations for this entire hotel group." That alone caused a stir. The manager's shoulders stiffened. His eyes darted from Daniel to Steven and back again. Daniel gestured gently toward Steven. "And this," he said, his voice steady, "is the man who built this company from the ground up." A wave of shock rolled through the room. Not whispers this time, gasps. The receptionist covered her mouth. A guest near the entrance said out loud, "No way." Someone else muttered, "So he really is Steven Seagal, the owner, the man the hotel existed because of." The manager's face went completely pale. I didn't," he stammered. "No one told me." Daniel cut him off, firm but controlled. "No one should have to tell you," he said. "That's the point." Steven stepped forward slightly. Still calm. Still composed. "I never hid who I was," he said. "I just didn't announce it." He looked around the lobby. "Because I wanted to see how people would act when they thought no one important was watching." That sentence landed hard. The manager's knees looked weak. He reached for the counter to steady himself. Daniel continued, "We've reviewed preliminary footage. What we saw was unacceptable." The manager shook his head. "Sir, please, this was a misunderstanding." Steven met his eyes. "No," he said quietly. "It was a revelation." Phones were still recording. No one dared lower them now. Daniel turned to the staff. Every guest deserves respect, regardless of appearance, accent, or status. Then he turned back to the manager. And you failed that responsibility. The manager's voice broke. I've given years to this place. Steven nodded once. So have many people who were treated better than this. Daniel took a breath. Effective immediately, you are relieved of your position. The words echoed. Security straightened, not to escort Steven out this time, but to stand beside Daniel. The manager's mouth opened, but nothing came out. Steven watched him carefully. This moment doesn't need humiliation, Steven said. It needs reflection. The manager looked up, eyes wet. I didn't think. That's true, Steven replied. You didn't. He turned to the guests. I didn't come here to fire anyone, he said. I came here to rest. He paused. But sometimes, he continued, life puts a mirror in front of us, whether we ask for it or not. Daniel nodded. We will be conducting a full review of staff training and conduct. A woman in the crowd spoke up. Thank you for standing up. Steven offered a small nod. Thank you for watching. The manager was gently escorted away, not in handcuffs, not in disgrace, but in silence. That silence said everything. Steven turned back to the desk. Now, he said softly, let's start again. The receptionist's hands trembled as she typed. Yes, sir, she said. Of course. Steven stopped her. Not sir, he said. Just welcome me like you would anyone else. She swallowed hard. Welcome to the hotel. Steven smiled faintly. The tension finally began to dissolve. But the story wasn't over. Because outside that lobby, the videos were already spreading. And millions of people were about to ask themselves the same question this hotel had just been forced to face. If no one knew who you were, would they still treat you with respect? Steven picked up his key card. As he turned toward the elevator, Daniel walked beside him. This will change things, Daniel said quietly. Steven nodded. I hope so. Behind them, the lobby buzzed, not with gossip, but with realization. Because what happened tonight wasn't just about a hotel. It was about how people behave when they think power is theirs alone. And everyone who witnessed it knew one thing for sure. The truth doesn't need to shout. It only needs the moment. When it finally speaks. By morning, the video was everywhere. It started as a shaky clip filmed from the corner of a quiet hotel lobby. No background music. No editing. Just raw truth. Within hours, it had millions of views. Headlines didn't focus on luxury or celebrity. They focused on behavior. Man denied service for his appearance. Truth shocks everyone. A lesson in power, humility, and respect goes viral. This is what real authority looks like. People replayed the same moments again and again, not when the truth was revealed, but when Steven stayed calm while being dismissed, doubted, and humiliated. That's what stayed with them. Comments poured in from all over the world. I've been treated like that. This happened to my father. I never realized how fast people judge. The calmness, that's real power. Steven watched none of it. He woke up early, just as he always did. The hotel room was quiet now. Peaceful. No cameras. No tension. Just sunlight breaking through the curtains. Later that morning, Daniel knocked gently on the door. There's something you should know, he said. Steven nodded. I figured. Daniel explained that the company had already taken action, not just removing one manager, but launching mandatory retraining across every location. Policies were being rewritten. Leadership was being held accountable. This didn't just expose one person, Daniel said. It exposed a culture. Steven listened carefully. That's good, he said. But make sure it doesn't stop at words. Daniel nodded. It won't. When Steven finally stepped back into the lobby, it felt different. Staff stood straighter, but not out of fear. Guests smiled, but not nervously. There was awareness now. A young employee approached him hesitantly. Mr. Seagal, she said, I just wanted to say, thank you. For what? Steven asked. For not yelling, she said. For not embarrassing anyone. for showing us how to handle power. Steven smiled gently. Power doesn't need to humiliate, he said. It needs to protect. Outside, reporters waited, but Steven walked past them. He didn't owe anyone a speech. The message had already been delivered. Across the world, people discussed the moment in schools, offices, and homes. Not because it involved a famous name, but because it reflected everyday life. A man judged by his clothes. A voice dismissed because of assumptions. Respect withheld until status was revealed. And the question echoed everywhere. Why should respect depend on who someone is? Steven finally released a short statement. Just one sentence. Treat everyone with dignity, especially when you think it doesn't matter. That sentence went further than any interview ever could. The former manager never spoke publicly. The hotel never tried to erase the incident. They owned it. And that mattered. Because accountability isn't about destroying someone. It's about correcting a system. Weeks later, the video was still circulating, not because of outrage, but because of reflection. Parents showed it to their kids. Leaders shared it in meetings. Strangers debated it online. Not asking, who was right? But asking something deeper. Who am I when no one important is watching? Steven moved on, as he always did. But the moment stayed behind. In that lobby. On those screens. In the minds of millions. Because the strongest response to disrespect isn't anger. It isn't revenge. It isn't even exposure. It's character. If you believe respect should never depend on appearance, status, or power, type respect in the comments. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more powerful, fictional stories that remind us what real strength looks like.